Good day, everyone. Welcome to our exploration of theology and sustainability. I'm Francis. Today we embark on a fascinating journey examining how major religious traditions guide environmental stewardship. We'll see that faith and environmental care are deeply interconnected. Ancient wisdom offers practical solutions for today's ecological challenges. Welcome to this crucial discussion. Often, environmental discourse focuses solely on science or policy, overlooking the powerful impact of religious beliefs. Yet, with over 80% of the global population identifying with faith traditions, understanding these perspectives is vital for effective environmental action. Religious communities offer unique moral authority, vast networks, and deep values that can truly drive meaningful change in sustainability. By the end of this module, you'll gain a comprehensive understanding of how religious traditions conceptualize environmental responsibility. You'll articulate key theological concepts like creation theology and stewardship, recognize diverse religious approaches to nature, and analyze how these beliefs translate into practical environmental action. Most importantly, you'll develop skills to constructively engage with faith-based environmental initiatives.
Our module follows a logical progression through 6 interconnected units. We begin with foundational concepts, then examine specific religious perspectives on creation. The theology of stewardship forms our central focus, followed by environmental ethics in religious contexts. We'll explore interfaith collaboration opportunities before concluding with practical application exercises. This structure ensures you develop both theoretical understanding and practical skills for engaging with faith-based environmental initiatives. Let us begin with fundamental definitions. Theology, the systematic study of divine matters and religious beliefs, might seem distant from sustainability concerns. However, both disciplines address humanity's relationship with creation and our moral responsibilities. The Psalm reminds us that religious traditions have long recognized divine ownership of the earth, positioning humans as temporary inhabitants rather than absolute owners. This perspective fundamentally challenges purely utilitarian approaches to environmental management.
Religious environmental thought has evolved significantly throughout history. Ancient sacred texts established foundational principles of reverence for creation. During the Middle Ages, religious institutions developed practical stewardship approaches, managing land sustainably for centuries. The Industrial Revolution challenged these traditional relationships, leading to theological reflection on humanity's proper role. The modern environmental movement has prompted renewed engagement, with religious communities increasingly recognizing their responsibility to address ecological crises. We now turn our attention to the tangible influence of religion on contemporary environmental attitudes. Faith traditions offer rich cultural narratives that profoundly shape how individuals perceive and interact with the natural world. These narratives often imbue nature with sacred value, fostering a sense of reverence and responsibility. Furthermore, religious ethical frameworks provide robust moral guidance for ecological decision-making, translating beliefs into practical engagement. Faith communities also act as vital centers for environmental education and activism, mobilizing collective action. Finally, religious leaders frequently advocate for sustainable policies, underscoring faith's significant contribution to global environmental efforts. We now delve into 4 pivotal theological concepts shaping religious environmental thought. Creation theology posits that the natural world is divinely created and possesses inherent value, transcending its instrumental utility for humanity. This underpins the concept of stewardship, where humans are regarded as entrusted caretakers, responsible for maintaining ecological well-being rather than exercising absolute dominion. Complementing this is the idea of a sacred trust, implying that Earth's systems are bequeathed to us with an expectation of diligent, respectful management. Lastly, moral responsibility underscores the ethical imperative to safeguard the environment as an extension of our duties to the divine and to one another.
Let's now turn our focus to Christian perspectives on creation. At its heart is the Genesis narrative, where God declares creation good, highlighting its inherent value. We also find the concept of humanity bearing the image of God, or imago Dei, which gives us a unique responsibility toward the environment. Scripture also beautifully illustrates creation praising its maker and looks forward to a shared redemption with humanity. The verse from Genesis really drives home our foundational mandate to care for the earth. Moving to Islamic thought, we observe a comprehensive environmental framework deeply embedded in its theology. Allah is recognized as Al-Khaliq, the sole creator of all existence. Humanity's role is defined as Khalifa, acting as vicegerents or trustees on earth. This designation imparts a significant responsibility to safeguard and manage creation prudently. The concept of fitra highlights the inherent natural order and equilibrium within the universe, which humans are instructed to uphold. All of creation is considered to be in submission to Allah's will, imbuing the natural world with intrinsic spiritual value. Practical applications include a strong emphasis on water conservation. Jewish tradition similarly provides robust practical wisdom for environmental stewardship. Central to this is the Torah's affirmation of divine creation, establishing humanity's role in a sacred natural order. The principle of Baal Tashchit strictly prohibits needless destruction, while the observances of Shabbat and Shemitah exemplify cyclical rest and renewal for land and creatures. This emphasizes humanity's profound covenantal relationship with the land, fostering a collective responsibility for its preservation and reflecting enduring principles highly relevant to contemporary sustainability discussions. Moving on, we explore the rich ecological insights within Hindu traditions. Here, the concept of Brahman signifies that all creation possesses a divine presence, rendering nature inherently sacred. This reverence extends to physical forms such as rivers, mountains, and animals, which are frequently personified as deities. The principle of ahimsa, or nonviolence, is profoundly relevant, advocating for the protection and care of all living beings and the environment. Additionally, Dharma encapsulates the ethical duty to uphold cosmic and ecological order, fostering a balanced relationship with the natural world. All right, let's shift our focus to Buddhist perspectives on creation. Here, the core idea is dependent origination. Essentially, everything is interconnected. This means our actions have consequences, especially for nature. We'll also touch on karuna, or compassion, extending to all living beings, which naturally fosters environmental care. Finally, Buddhist teachings encourage mindful consumption and the middle path, both vital for sustainable living. It's about recognizing our place within this vast web of existence. Indigenous spiritual traditions offer profound ecological wisdom, perceiving land as a living, sacred entity rather than an inert resource, a perspective often contrasting with dominant Western paradigms. This worldview fosters a deep sense of kinship with all species, considering humans as relatives within the broader web of life. A crucial aspect is ancestral responsibility, underscoring intergenerational stewardship. Traditional ecological knowledge, shaped over millennia, plays a vital role in maintaining sustainable relationships with the natural world, a connection powerfully articulated in the accompanying quote. Let's now compare how different traditions understand creation. Notice the diversity in beliefs, from monotheistic views of a creator God giving humans stewardship to cyclical Hindu perspectives where nature is divine. Buddhism highlights radical interdependence, while indigenous traditions emphasize sacred landscapes and respectful relationships with non-human persons. What's fascinating is how these origin stories fundamentally shape humanity's ethical relationship with the natural world, whether through responsibility, reverence, or interconnectedness. This often includes specific protocols for interaction with the land and its inhabitants, rooted in deep reverence and a sense of belonging within the natural world, rather than dominion over it. Today, we delve into the concept of stewardship within a theological framework. This unit explores how various theological perspectives inform our responsibility towards the natural world. We will examine the idea of creation not merely as a resource, but as a sacred trust, necessitating active, responsible care. The visual of diverse hands nurturing a seedling beautifully encapsulates this universal call to foster and protect our shared environment, highlighting a unified purpose across varied backgrounds. Let's dive into a crucial topic: the difference between dominion and stewardship. Often, the idea of dominion from Genesis is misunderstood as a free pass to exploit nature. But if we look closer at the original Hebrew, the word actually suggests responsible care, like a gardener or a shepherd. It's about accountability, recognizing that creation has its own value, not just what it can do for us. We're managing something that belongs to a higher power, as Psalm 24:1 reminds us. It's a significant shift in perspective, isn't it?
This deeper appreciation of stewardship naturally leads to considering humanity's role as trustees of creation. Across diverse religious and indigenous traditions, environmental care is consistently presented as a sacred duty, not merely an ethical choice. We are entrusted by a divine source to safeguard creation, carrying a profound responsibility to preserve its integrity for all future generations. This perspective highlights our inherent accountability for our collective actions, underscoring the deep moral and theological dimensions of our environmental engagement. All right, so we've talked about the universal idea of environmental trusteeship across different faiths. Now let's look at a powerful contemporary example from a specific tradition, Pope Francis's 2015 encyclical Laudato Si. This isn't just a Catholic document, it's a globally recognized call to action. Francis frames our ecological crisis as a deeply moral and spiritual challenge, introducing the concept of integral ecology, showing how human well-being and nature are intertwined. He also critiques our throwaway culture and urges us all towards an ecological conversion, asking us to rethink our values and our relationship with creation. It's a key text influencing environmental discussions far beyond the Church. Moving from the Catholic view, let's look at the 2015 Islamic Declaration on Climate Change. It highlights Allah as creator and us as his Khalifa or trustees, emphasizing our stewardship role, as the Hadith states. The declaration squarely blames humans for climate change and sets bold goals, phasing out emissions and moving to 100% renewable energy. It specifically calls on wealthier nations and oil-producing states to lead this vital transition. Next up is the 2015 Buddhist Climate Change Statement from the Global Buddhist Climate Change Collective. It's really grounded in core Buddhist teachings, highlighting the interconnectedness of all life. This perspective leads to advocating mindful consumption to lessen our environmental impact and showing compassionate concern for everyone affected by climate change. They also call for concrete actions like specific temperature targets and a shift to renewable energy. As the statement warns, we are at a crucial crossroads where our survival is at stake. We can see practical examples of faith-inspired ecological stewardship. Greenhouses of worship show how congregations implement renewable energy, reduce waste, and conserve water, often through programs like Green Faith certification. Community farming involves faith communities creating gardens to feed vulnerable populations, as seen with South Africa's Churchland program. Lastly, ethical investment highlights religious institutions divesting from fossil fuels and supporting sustainable ventures. Over 400 Catholic institutions have already committed. These models truly illustrate how theological principles are translated into tangible environmental action on the ground. Here, we're looking at environmental ethics through two lenses, faith-based and secular. Faith-based ethics draw from sacred texts and divine commands, extending moral care to all creation and emphasizing our responsibility to a higher power. Secular ethics, on the other hand, build on human reason and science, often focusing on our duties to present and future human generations. It's important to remember these aren't opposing views. Instead, they offer valuable complementary insights, enriching our overall approach to ecological challenges.
Here, we explore 4 moral principles that span various religious traditions. Justice, inspired by Micah 6:8, demands fair environmental benefit distribution, especially for the vulnerable. Compassion, from Dhammapada 129, extends our care to all creatures and ecosystems. The Quran's call for moderation, 731, guides us to limit consumption and live simply. Finally, Deuteronomy 30:19 emphasizes sustainability, ensuring our actions don't deplete natural systems for future generations. These principles offer a robust ethical foundation for vital environmental action. We're now looking at environmental injustice, a systemic issue where marginalized communities disproportionately suffer from pollution and climate impacts. Our faith traditions offer strong frameworks for addressing this, rooted in justice and human dignity. Remember Psalm 82:3, defend the weak and the fatherless. Faith communities, often directly impacted, have significant moral authority to advocate for equitable environmental policies. The image perfectly demonstrates this, showing religious leaders at protests, actively protecting vulnerable communities, and championing change. We're examining biodiversity loss through diverse faith lenses, Many traditions affirm the inherent worth and sacredness of all creation. Think of the Christian hymn's reverence for every creature, or the Quranic verse 24:41 highlighting universal praise to the Creator. Jain Ahimsa even protects the smallest organisms, and indigenous worldviews foster deep kinship with non-human life. Therefore, species extinction is widely seen as a violation of divine creation and a failure in our human stewardship, demanding a strong ethical response. Following our exploration of theological implications, this workshop offers a practical application of faith-based environmental ethics. Working in interfaith groups, you will analyze real-world dilemmas, drawing upon sacred texts and diverse traditions. The objective is to formulate ethically informed recommendations for various stakeholders. This exercise demonstrates how religious perspectives provide practical guidance for addressing complex ecological issues, enhancing critical thinking and collaborative problem-solving. Welcome to Unit 5, where we delve into interfaith perspectives and common ground. This session explores how diverse religious traditions contribute to environmental ethics, emphasizing both their unique insights and shared principles. We will examine the convergence of these perspectives in addressing pressing ecological challenges, fostering unity through collective action and mutual respect. This unit encourages a critical examination of how theological differences can be transcended to articulate a common language for global sustainability. This segment explores the convergent environmental ethics found across diverse religious traditions. Despite theological differences, many faiths share foundational principles that advocate for ecological stewardship. We will examine how concepts such as the intrinsic sanctity of creation, human custodianship, the importance of ecological equilibrium, and the intergenerational obligation to protect the planet form a common ethical framework. Furthermore, we will delve into the religious imperative for environmental justice, addressing disproportionate impacts on vulnerable communities, and the spiritual value of moderate consumption as a sustainable practice. Following our discussion on shared environmental ethics, we now examine the practical implementation of these values through interfaith collaborations. These organizations demonstrate how diverse religious traditions unite to address ecological challenges. Green Faith, for instance, focuses on leadership training and climate action campaigns, leveraging religious influence for advocacy. Interfaith Power and Light mobilizes American congregations to reduce their carbon footprint and influence policy. Lastly, the UN Environment's Faith for Earth initiative highlights global efforts to integrate faith-based organizations into sustainable development goals. Such networks are crucial for fostering broad societal engagement in environmental stewardship.
Now, let's look at a concrete example. The Interfaith Rainforest Initiative, launched in 2017. It brings together diverse religious leaders, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, Hindu, and indigenous, to protect rainforests and uphold the rights of forest peoples. Their work involves education, advocacy, and direct action in key nations like Brazil, Colombia, and Indonesia. The joint statement powerfully highlights the moral urgency of linking deforestation to the climate crisis and indigenous rights, showing how their theological commitments translate into tangible policy impact. Having examined the tangible impact of interfaith environmental collaboration, we now delve into the underlying philosophical convergence that enables such partnerships. This exercise focuses on identifying shared ethical principles across diverse religious traditions concerning ecological stewardship. Understanding these commonalities is pivotal. It demonstrates that interfaith care for the environment is not merely a pragmatic alliance, but a deeply rooted expression of universal human responsibilities towards the planet. Building on the recognition of shared ecological principles, we now consider the practical avenues through which religious communities can collectively address environmental challenges. Collaborative efforts enable a unified moral voice in policy debates, lending significant authority to calls for climate action. Furthermore, shared educational resources can foster deeper understanding across diverse faith traditions, while coordinated community projects offer tangible local impacts, such as sustainable initiatives. These collaborations can extend globally, leveraging extensive religious networks to tackle transnational environmental issues effectively. Having explored the collective potential of faith communities in environmental stewardship, We now shift our focus to individual engagement. This unit encourages students to reflect deeply on the theological and ethical foundations discussed, translating these principles into a personal, actionable sustainability framework. Consider how your unique faith perspective informs your commitment to ecological care, prompting an integration of belief with practical action. This process is vital for internalizing the curriculum's core message and developing a holistic approach to environmental responsibility rooted in personal conviction. Now, let us consider the practical application: constructing your personal faith-based sustainability statement. This statement serves as a foundational document, articulating how your religious tradition guides your commitment to environmental stewardship. It should clearly identify the theological underpinnings from your faith that shape your ecological ethics. Subsequently, articulate the core values derived from these teachings, such as justice or compassion, that inform your approach to environmental challenges. Finally, detail specific, actionable commitments you will undertake in your daily life, community, and broader advocacy, making your convictions tangible. Religious traditions globally offer profound theological foundations for environmental stewardship. Sacred texts and long-held teachings often depict the natural world as a divine gift or sacred trust, underscoring humanity's moral obligation to protect it. These perspectives move beyond purely utilitarian arguments, grounding environmental care in deeply held spiritual values and a sense of reverence for creation. Across diverse faith traditions, the concept of stewardship emerges as a common thread. This idea posits that humanity is entrusted with the care of creation, implying responsibility rather than absolute dominion. All right, everyone, let's open up the floor for a rich discussion. These questions are designed to get us thinking deeply about how faith intersects with environmental action. I encourage you all to share your personal reflections on the theological foundations we've explored and how the idea of stewardship plays out in different traditions. Let's also consider a real-world environmental challenge and brainstorm how religious ethics could offer practical solutions. Finally, what unique role do you see faith-based approaches playing alongside science and policy? Having established the theological underpinnings, we now turn our attention to the practical implications of these foundations in addressing climate change. This upcoming module will delve into how diverse religious communities are actively responding to the climate crisis. We will examine specific theological interpretations of climate science, review significant religious statements on responsibility, and explore concrete examples of faith-based advocacy, activism, and community-level initiatives. Your preparation should involve reflecting on how your own religious tradition might engage with climate change as both a moral and spiritual imperative.